Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar with AmplifAI and CMP Research. Stop sampling, start listening, AI plus Auto QA that drives performance. Adrian, are you in San Francisco right now? You're out in Arizona. Nicole, where are you hailing from today?
I'm in Brooklyn, so greetings from New York City.
Awesome. Awesome. And you have the Ryder Cup out in your neck of the woods this weekend coming up, so I'm sure things are bustling a little bit for that, for all those golf fans out there. If not, sorry to bore you. But we'll go ahead and get started. Let's do a quick intro here. Nicole, you want to introduce yourself and CMP Research?
Sure, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Kyle. I'm the managing director and co-founder of CMP Research. If you haven't heard of us, CMP Research is the research and advisory arm of customer management practice, which puts on Customer Contact Week and other various CX and customer related communities and events. I'm one of our lead analysts here. I've been a future of work researcher for over a decade and actually started my career in CX and customer contact research, working way back when on the effortless experience research at a company called CEB. So if you're familiar with customer effort score, I was part of that team. But yeah, delighted to be here. I love talking all things CX, AI, QA, all the acronyms, but no, really looking forward to it. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. It's great to have your expertise here. I know a lot of people are familiar with CEB, and a lot of us go to the CCW shows. So thank you so much for joining us. Adrian, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hey everyone, my name is Adrian Valenzuela, head of sales here at Amplify. A little bit about my background. I've been in the contact center space for over 20 years now. Started out as an agent on the phones, held every role within operations. For the majority of my career now, I've been on the tech side, implementing different solutions specifically for the frontline user. So this is dear to my heart, close to my heart, because I've once been in the shoes of having to do QA and having to look at data and prep myself on what am I going to do today and how am I going to work with my team. So excited to share with you guys what we have today.
If you want to see a much younger version of Adrian managing a call center, he posted a picture where you look like you're about 12 in a suit that doesn't fit, much like we all did back in the day, working with the contact center folks in the seat of the team lead. So definitely excited to have some firsthand experience as we go through some of this content here. If you don't know about Amplify, we do CX coaching, auto QA, incentive, gamification management, performance management, all of that combined for mid-market to enterprise companies of all industries, as you can see here, and have been recognized a little bit by Gartner, by CMP, and being a leader in the Auto QA Prism report, so on and so forth. Definitely check us out if you haven't, and we'll go ahead and get going with the Auto QA talk track. Real quick, most of you, I think, on this call are operators, so this is no surprise here. The traditional manual QA, 1 to 2% of sampling. Surprisingly enough, we were doing evaluations off of just a handful of calls from each agent, from each coach, and coaching off of that wasn't really great for seeing the whole picture of things. Auto QA came along, gave us full coverage, but then we were overloaded with all this data, and it was now too hard to evaluate all the data, despite it being in some dashboards. So, with the advent of AI, which is affecting everything in everyone's world, we can now run full analysis on what's being done with every agent, what are the trends with the agents, what are the trends with the coaches and how they're coaching, and able to actually provide that scenario listening and prescribe next best actions that are specific to each agent and what they need to do to improve based on the metrics that you care about most. Why does Auto QA fail alone? We touched on it a little bit, but maybe you can add some additional color to that, Adrian.
Yeah, so when you think about auto QA and you think about what the team leads are used to, even the agents getting prepared on what they're going to be coached on is they were at 2%, right? They were getting on standard, probably 4 evaluations per agent per month. But then you're moving from 2% visibility to 100% visibility. And the problem that the supervisors face already today is that they have a lot of reports, a lot of different dashboards, a lot of different systems that are tracking a lot of the performance metrics for the agents that they struggle with already. Now, when Auto QA came out and we started to see a lot of hype and buzz around it, everyone was excited. Now we're going to be able to get more evaluations. The agents are no longer going to feel like, hey, you just picked my bad calls. You didn't listen to the other seven that I had that same day. Like, why are you only coaching me to this one interaction? But what ends up happening is now we have supervisors that are overloaded with more data and they're still trying to figure out, is this a problem? Is this not a problem? What do I coach? And how do I know that what I'm coaching to is actually working? I'm just looking at a lot of data and then I'm still just picking from one of the evaluations that were done and saying, okay, I'm going to coach to this. Why is it failing right now? Too much data and just not enough insights as to where do I drive that action.
And Nicole, you have some extra insights on this as well beyond the just straight daily tasks.
Absolutely. One of the biggest potential missed opportunities in an auto QA program or QA program is if you're not really closing that loop on coaching. CMP research shows that for a frontline agent in customer contact, career development is their third largest driver of job satisfaction and likelihood to stay at the organization. We also know, and our research shows, that a satisfied agent, someone who's happy in their job, is at least 2 times more likely to satisfy customers and deliver good customer outcomes. What agents are really looking for is that coaching, that skill development, and an auto QA program that doesn't provide structured coaching, clear coaching, that doesn't frame things up as a skill development or coaching opportunity is really missing the mark, because it's going to fail when it's oriented around compliance rather than coaching and getting better skill development, career development.
And with AI agents, we still need our best people. We still have those interactions that need those human touches to be able to handle the complex things. And a lot of people want to speak to an agent when it comes to those complex things. And so keeping your top people is absolutely a concern still to this day. So now that we've dove into the auto QA plus AI benefits here, what are some of those top use cases? Nicole, you want to kick us off on this?
Absolutely. Something we're seeing more and more of is sales interactions being key, and really thinking of customer contact as not just an opportunity to deal with inbound service requests, solve the customer problem, then we're done. We're really seeing a increase in not just cross-selling and identifying which contacts and which opportunities are a great opportunity to cross-sell, upsell, etc., but also looking at proactive service. So to what extent can our auto QA tools enable our human agents, non-human agents alike, to reach out to a customer before the customer comes to them saying, I have an issue or a question. So that kind of proactive ability to find out what works and what doesn't in customer interactions is key to that. And then I would also say we're seeing a real differentiation around AI and AI-enabled auto QA solutions that are more proactive when it comes to knowledge-based management. I know we have a lot of practitioners on the line. We're hearing this a lot from our practitioner clients at the moment. Knowledge-based management is hard, but getting it right is the root of a lot of success in customer contact. So when it comes to solutions that can be proactive about flagging things that should be in the knowledge base, adding those things to the knowledge base or suggesting those things to the knowledge base in an automated fashion, it takes a lot of work off of your human team's plate. And you're always going to need people to check that suggestion is accurate and the knowledge base still makes sense. But an AI and QA solution that can enable a proactive knowledge base kind of maintenance and upgrades and additions is going to take a lot of burden off of the customer contact team. That knowledge base supports coaching. That's why it's so important. So those are a couple of things for me.
As far as some specific scenarios that you see come up, Adrian, where are some areas where you wish you had this in your prior life?
Yeah, definitely. Let's just take like sales interactions, right? I think the fact of already having data and being able to see, okay, I see agents on my team that are performing very well, they're able to convert, but then I'm still trying to coach up my agents that probably are not doing a good job when it comes to overcoming objections or providing enough value to the customers as they're trying to get them to commit to a sale or to a product, whatever it may be. I think the fact of now having auto QA, yes, it gives you more insights and it gives you a lot of data, but it doesn't necessarily tell you what is driving that behavior to be successful. By having AI and auto QA together, not only do you have the data and the insights as to this is what's making a top performer, but now you have AI providing you driven actions and insights to say, okay, these are what your top performers are doing. This is the behavior that they're displaying within their interactions to make that sale. This is what they're doing to overcome those objections. If you follow these steps with your low performing agents, you're going to have a lot more top performing agents. So again, being able to utilize the data, but then having AI drive you in the right direction. So you're not spending half of your shift still looking through data, figuring out, okay, what do I do and how do I know this is going to help?
Absolutely. There was compliance on there in healthcare and very much so in finance. Compliance is a huge issue just because there are fees and penalties and things you have to make sure your agents are doing, and not just on the did they say XYZ, but the context of how they're handling a situation when it comes to compliance is something that AI can now handle and evaluate in a much more robust way. Adrian, I don't know if you want to double down on that at all.
Yeah, if you think about compliance, right? Again, similar scenario, what we're faced with here is having not enough data or having too much data and having data spread across various systems. And if you look at a compliance related scenario, you might have agents that are following the right policy, following the right procedures when handling different types of interactions. But how do you understand where your actual gaps are at? When we think about traditional QA and looking at a small sample set, you might have one-offs, which you think you're solving the problem. You might have a few agents that may have had just one bad interaction. But now, when we move to automating that process and having much more data, you're able to identify are there actual trends that are happening with an agent? But most importantly, is it the agent's fault? This may be a coaching opportunity for the supervisor. So having the data and the insights, not only at the agent and the supervisor level, but for the management staff coming in that are only looking at the supervisors, are there gaps in how they're actually performing coaching sessions with their agents? So having the data, but then also having the insights at every persona level, not just at the agent and the supervisor, because it doesn't stop there, but giving management the same type of visibility to say, okay, here are the supervisors that are coaching well to compliance, but here are the supervisors that struggle. If you coach them, you're going to impact their entire team.
Absolutely. And that goes to the sentence at the bottom there where you're able to deliver actionable intelligence that informs strategic moves like how you're coaching instead of just randomly coaching or what you think you need to be coaching on for the whole team. It gets more specific than that. We do have a question that came in, so thanks for starting to chat those in. How to deal with auto QA and 100% scoring versus transcription costs, more of a product type of question. This has been a tough one to tackle. Adrian, you want to take this one?
Definitely, I'd say that has been a problem traditionally. But if you look at the different models that are now available, transcription costs shouldn't be an issue. There are different ways that we can help solve that, whether we work with your CCAS provider or how you're currently today recording your interactions, but definitely something that we can solve with. How are you using Auto QA to help identify root cause issues that are outside of what is in the transcript? Great question. So this is something that AmplifAI solves that definitely takes just your traditional QA and auto QA to the next level. We're capturing data across all of your performance metrics. So to your point, there might be behaviors that are captured from an agent's performance that is outside of the QA form or from the transcript, from the interaction. So how do we find that root cause? Great question. So what we do is we bring in the data from all of these different systems that do not communicate with each other and provide you a more robust scorecard for your agents where we'll identify not just the areas where they're at in terms of performance or are they above goal or below goal, but we identify the behaviors that the agents are actually doing that are driving those numbers to go up or down.
Yeah, and if I could just build on what Adrian shared on the research side, and we look across all the practitioners out there taking this approach, but also all the solution providers, Amplify solution, like what Adrian's talking about, really does jump out because what we should be doing, right, is identifying drivers. Like, what is something that actually positively correlates with CSAT, with NPS, with a customer loyalty metric? Because if we're not doing a true driver analysis, we end up in a world where, and we've had a lot of practitioners struggle with this, you could have professionals scoring well on the QA scorecard, but then the CSAT of that interaction, the NPS of that interaction is not good. So you have this like divergence, and what Adrian's talking about solves for that.
What are the AI plus Auto QA differentiators? So if you want to kick things off a little bit here, Adrian, and maybe summarize or add to what you've already spoken to.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I'll have to say this again. Nicole, you just mentioned it, right? Like, how can you have a positive QA, a passing QA form, but a low CSAT or NPS? I think back in my time, I also ran a sales campaign and I'd have top sellers, but with low QA scores, right? And it just didn't make sense to me. And I would just try to figure it out. But it's funny. It just brought me back a little bit. But okay, what are the AI and Auto QA differentiators? I think being able to not only provide you the data, but being able to provide you action. So think of it like this. You may have your supervisors that traditionally log in for their day and they might look at their auto QA results from the previous day or for the month, however they're setting themselves up for today's coaching. But where AI brings in the difference on how you manage auto QA and also all of your other performance metrics, imagine a life where you now log in for your shift and within 5 minutes, AI is telling you, hey, here are all the results from not only all of your QA forms that have been evaluated, but here are all the performance metrics. Here is how they weight against the way your company is weighting each of these metrics, the importance of it. And because of the weighting, here are the top three actions that you have to do within the first couple of hours of your shift. You have to coach one individual to a specific behavior that's going to improve X metric. You're going to follow up with a specific agent that you may have coached last week, but we see them trending downward. So get with them now before it becomes a bigger problem. And then, hey, we've been seeing all the results from a specific agent that is doing very well. Recognize them. Continue to provide them that motivation that's going to keep that same behavior, keep that same track record that they have. So, being more of a guided step on how you're looking at the data is definitely how you can look at this different.
Nicole, I think you had something for the QA people specifically.
Yeah, exactly. Just something I like to remind everybody is that your QA team, your human QA team, can do so much more when enabled with an AI enabled auto QA solution, right? When you think about structured and strategic coaching, more detailed data that actually, to Adrian's point, suggests action that you can take to improve on that particular metric or in particular data. If you're looking to get the most out of your team, an AI-enabled auto QA solution is the way to go. The earlier point, it's not about replacing the human QA team by any means, but it's about making them more productive, making them more empowered to, again, deliver structured and valuable coaching and so on.
I spoke at a marketing conference not too long ago, and I said the same thing that applies here is it's not that AI is going to take your job, but if you don't embrace it, it may block a promotion. So you definitely need to embrace it, take advantage of what the capabilities are now, and move forward from there. So, Adrian, anything else from an operator standpoint that stands out to you?
I think the ability to understand what's happening on the front end, because a lot of self-service and automation is taking place, and you don't know how that's actually impacting the moment that it hits your agents. So I think the ability to be able to auto QA your chatbots or anything living on the front end to get better awareness on if that's actually improving the customer experience or is it hurting the customer experience so that you can provide this feedback back to the business because it may not be the agent's fault or the business's fault when it's actually hitting the agent because of actually how these customers are being managed on the front end. So I think the ability to auto QA your chatbot and anything sitting on the front end is super helpful.
Yep, absolutely. So jumping forward, we have a use case scenario now that we've gone over the basics. Adrian, do you want to walk us through a retail customer interaction where you're evaluating something before and after the ability to have today's technology? And I'll let you kick it off here.
Yeah, so okay. So if we think about a retail scenario where this goes back to like how can you have a positive experience but the results show a poor experience, right? So if we're looking at this example here, standard QA meaning that you're looking at a small sample set of data, the supervisor may not have the ability or really does not have the ability to look at if there's anything trending and showing poor results and how to actually identify where this gap is happening. So here, what we see is a customer comes in and they're looking to return a product, right? So the agent follows the process. They're giving them a refund or a gift card back in return, right? But doesn't provide any empathy to the customer's experience. They do give them what they're looking for, meaning which is a return of the money spent. But what ends up happening is you are probably having an agent that's spending a little bit too much time on the interaction. There was no additional purchases being made by the customer, and you most likely had a result of a negative or poor NPS or CSAT score. And so what is standard, right? The agent's following the right procedure. They may have not shown any empathy to the customer on what's taking place, but the supervisor doesn't have visibility at large scale to say, is this a trend or was this a one-off? And are they just coaching to, hey, maybe don't take too much time on this interaction. You spent 8 minutes handling this customer's request when it should have been 6 minutes, but missing the fact that the agent didn't provide any empathy, right? So those are the gaps of the data that they're looking at. But now, if you look at AI and Auto QA, what the supervisor is now going to have is I've noticed that on at scale, if my agents are not providing empathy, but still providing a refund, we're seeing a poor result in our NPS score or on our CSAT. So having that visibility and now having AI, we're going to guide the supervisor to say, hey, we understand that your agents are providing a refund, but if you coach on empathy around this interaction type, you're going to see a much more positive experience. You are going to be able to retain that customer, and you are going to see more positive results when it comes to NPS and CSAT. So this is the differentiator here, right? A supervisor on the left may know that, hey, we're spending a little bit longer on this interaction than we'd like to, but we are giving them the refund, but we don't know exactly what's driving the positive or negative experience. But on the right, having that data and having the insights and the AI driving us down the right path to say, focus and coach to this behavior, not this metric, but this behavior, and you will see that metric improve. So that's the difference that you're seeing on the left and on the right here.
Yeah, and human interactions are very nuanced. The AI can do a better job of understanding that, oh, they didn't explain their problem for as long of a time period because there was that empathy given, allowing for it to be shorter. And then what you were talking about earlier, Adrian, where you're bringing in all this other data from your CRM or point of sale software, things like that, you can understand very quickly if the additional purchases were made and you retained and enhanced that customer experience. I have a few questions. Speaking of staff, how has AI allowed you to streamline the headcount you want? And what strategic human-led evaluation, what do human evaluations mean to you on the strategic side?
Yeah, great questions. I'll take this first, Nicole, and if you want to add anything to it. But if you think about how does it streamline the headcount, I think what we see is there is a lot of time waste, right? There's a lot of time wasted on your operations team looking at data and spending time on reports that they probably shouldn't have to, right? There's a lot of things that we're putting on the front end to make the customer experience very seamless and more intuitive and interactive to get them to solve their problem a lot faster. Why can't we do the same thing for the operators, right? And so that's what we're looking to do and solve here is being able to take away that heavy burden of them spending 40 to 50% trying to analyze reports and analyze data and figure out what to do. We're taking all that data for them and providing them insights to streamline their process, to make them more effective and efficient within the hours that they're there for their shift. So I think by doing that, it's leading to more strategic outcomes. If I'm now coming in within 5 minutes, 10 minutes of my shift and knowing exactly what I need to do and how to actually do it, what's been proven to improve agents, I'm going to be able to do a lot more throughout my day and then be able to see a great uptick in results in terms of my performance. And then this is going to be basically passed down across the entire organization. Nicole, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, add particularly to the part of the question around what does strategic human-led evaluations mean to you? And from the opposite perspective, we have many customer contact, sales teams, QA teams who come to us and they say, my team is resistant to coaching and they're defensive or they're not open to it. And when I start to ask them, like, what evidence are you bringing to that coaching conversation? What support, what data, etc. Like the teams that are dealing with direct reports who struggle to accept coaching are usually the teams who are not taking the approach on the right hand side of the screen because their tools are enabling them as leaders, as the QA team, as managers, as coaches to come with data backed evidence that is synthesized in an automatic and really smart way to then have a conversation that's rooted in fact and rooted in evidence and rooted in examples, and then show like how an alternate behavior leads to a better handle time, leads to a more positive sentiment, leads to additional purchases. So this is all a long way of me saying like a strategic human-led evaluation is one that's rooted in precisely the type of insight and evidence that an AI plus Auto QA approach can give you.
Can we query AI related to the example, which areas of the contact and who we should focus on for something like AHT to maintain and improve satisfaction? And then how does that happen?
Yeah, great question. And this is where I'd love to jump into a demo, but obviously, I can't take away from what Scott is doing here. But what I will say is, yes, can we query it to be able to find exactly how to solve for this problem? 100%. What we're looking at is not just the QA data, but we're looking at the data coming in from your CCAS, from your CRM, from where the surveys are coming out of, where the insights are coming out of, and looking at all the agents and how they're performing against each metric, but identifying which behavior. Because you may have, I'll give you an example. You may have a goal of HT to be at 10 minutes, and you may see agents that are actually hitting the 10-minute mark, but may have low CSAT or NPS scores. We will highlight to you and show you that, but also highlight you might have agents that are spending 13 minutes on the same type of interaction. Let's call it skill type number B, that are handling these interactions, but for 13 minutes, and their NPS and CSAT is a lot higher. They're actually getting good results. So you're able to see this at scale and take it back to the business to say, hey, we may have thought that 10 minutes was the right goal for us for this specific interaction, but we're seeing a negative impact on our customer experience. But our agents that are very creative and doing a really good job and going above and beyond, they've been actually taking a little bit more time, spending about 13 minutes, and their NPS and CSATs are actually great. They're in the green. So we'll be able to show you that, and you'll be able to identify where are their gaps, because it may be AHT, it may be empathy, but we'll be able to identify that and show you how each of these behaviors are impacting the overall result.
Yep. And I think a lot of that boils down to how you have this set up, what you're doing to set it up. So this is a process of an example of how we do it. And you need to make sure that your vendor is there to help you. And one of the things that we focus on is making sure that your success folks and your customer service folks on our side are former operators and understand your world a little bit more, which gets into this next question of what should you expect from your AI Auto QA vendor. So, Adrian, you want to hit on this real quick?
Yeah, definitely. I think the one that hits home for me, and one of the reasons why I love being here at Amplify, is the fact that probably 90+% of our customer success team all have been former operators, all have worked in the contact center space in some form or fashion, right? So they understand the problems. They understand what our customers are facing. So not only are they there to help you to understand how to utilize our interface, how to set up our interface, how to train the different functionalities, but they're able to look at your specific use cases and provide you guidance in, okay, I know this is what you're looking for, but if you follow this path and if you utilize the system in this fashion, you'll be able to get the results that you're looking for. So they've lived it, they've breathed it, they've been in your shoes before. I think that really, for me, drives home because a lot of times when I've done implementations in person or implementations virtual, you can see the difference when you're able to relate to what these supervisors are going through, what the agents are going through, what the QA team is going through. So it takes a lot of that, like, how do you know this is going to solve my problem? Hey, I've lived it before. I've been in your shoes. I've gone through this before. I think being able to have that expertise in the industry that we're working into and helping build up, I think goes a long way.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And one thing that we're looking at is making sure that you have the use cases within your company's vendors set of have you dealt with other large enterprises? Have you dealt with the financial industry? Do you know what's going on there? So is this being set up just to show you a dashboard, or are you actually creating a scenario where you can use your tool, whichever one you choose, that provides you what you need? And there are certainly all sorts of use cases across all industries. And it usually boils down to we did an AI for CX summit, and the main panel had the CEOs of large companies, both on the operator and the vendor side and the partner side. And it always 100% boiled down to start with the challenge that you're trying to accomplish. Don't just throw a technology at all of your problems and try to boil the ocean. So, Nicole, as you work with all sorts of vendors and talk to lots of customers to that point from an unbiased point of view, what are you seeing?
Yes, we're seeing, it goes back to what we talked about earlier. We're seeing organizations that are struggling with their, like practitioner organizations struggling with their QA programs. It's because of that divergence I talked about. So where, and what Adrian talked about as well, where you have someone who scores well on the QA component, but the customer interaction didn't go well from the customer perspective, or to Adrian's example, the sales side as well. So we're really focused on encouraging practitioners to make updates to their process and also find partners and solution providers who can actually analyze the interactions to prove what should be tracked in your QA program. What are the drivers of outcome metrics, right? Because this we really have to move away from the compliance mindset of this is a checklist and we check all these boxes to what are, to Adrian's point, the behaviors we should be tracking that add value, whether that's additional revenue, cross-sell, sales opportunity, or customer loyalty, good NPS score, good CSAT score. So I'd say that's why 65% of CXOs and customer contact leaders cite upgrading their QA program as an important priority for them in the next 2 years. It's exactly why, because they've been seeing, unfortunately, in a macro, a little bit of a divergence, and solutions like AmplifAI can certainly help the and customer success metrics, the outcome metrics we care about, really start to converge.
65% of folks are focusing on, from the operator side, improving this process, improving the technology in this process. On another slide, you have some of the key drivers of agent performance, increasing customer satisfaction, which this is a key component to that. So, Adrian, as you talk through finding how you solve some of the problems at hand, how are you helping companies like frame this out and build out that really streamline effort towards not just buying software, but solving the problem that they're trying to solve?
Yeah, definitely. I'll get to your question right now. So, really, there are many instances, right, where we come across where there may be one customer interaction that is handled by several different agents, for sure. During the implementation and as we're just scoping out the project, we'll work with you to understand how these interactions actually take place, but then also making sure that when we're building out your QA form, that as we're bringing in the data, how does this QA form align? And sometimes you might have a final result based off of the agent that closes out the engagement, the interaction with that customer, or to your point, are we going to score multiple agents? We'll map all of that out during the implementation as we, one, scope it out, but also build out your QA form within the platform. So can it be solved for it? Yes. And I think the second question here is, how do we handle text-based interactions when it comes to CX and QA? If it's mainly email interactions, same thing, right? We'll work with you. We'll understand what your interactions look like. Obviously, we already have the transcripts because they are text-based, so you'd be passing over the emails over to us. But again, we'll build out that QA form and we'll make sure that we're aligning the attributes that are going to be automated throughout the process that align well with your emails that are your interactions that are coming in through email. So can it be solved? Yes. And we'll definitely can get into a more deeper discussion around this.
How are you
Oh, yes.
helping
Okay.
folks specifically frame out what they should be tackling so they don't end up being in a boil the ocean type of thing and they've not got what they want to show for this movement towards adding AI to Auto QA, or even just leaping forward to from standard 1 to 2% manual evaluations to AI plus Auto QA from the start?
Yeah, definitely. So there are different ways that we can answer this. Again, what we like to do is it's going to be all case by case, right? Which customer we're working with. But if they're a customer that has multiple different programs, definitely we want to look at which program they're looking to make the biggest impact for first, depending on where they've been at and how they've been trending. But we want to understand, okay, what do your KPIs look like today? And most importantly, how do these KPIs impact the business, right? Because not only do we want to solve for what's happening at the operator level, what's happening in the contact center, but we also want to make sure that we align ourselves with what the business is looking to improve. So really, let's look at the lowest hanging fruit first, figure out, okay, where can we see quick ROI? But we'll also take them through a very structured ROI use case and program where we'll be able to help the operators understand what they're going to see at the contact center side, but also be able to utilize that same ROI exercise that we'll run them through to align to the business. So not only are we solving for the contact center problems or opportunities, but also solving for the business.
Nicole, I'm sure you're championing the bit here to add in because a lot of your research aligns directly to this.
Yeah, and I can't underscore enough the agent engagement component of this because going back to what when we think about using AI enabled auto QA to QA interactions led by our human workforce, right? As simpler contacts get automated, which we know is happening, automating more processes and contacts is the number one most urgent priority for CX and customer contact practitioners. What's left over for your human agents, like their workload, the share of that pie is now pretty much close to 100% complex interactions, right? If you've automated the simple stuff. So the role of QA becomes so much more important in a world where the average complexity level of interactions that are coming to your human frontline workforce is higher. And that, of course, means there's more at stake for the customer. The sales metrics, the customer satisfaction metrics, operations metrics are important. But it also means that your human workforce, your engagement, like it's much easier to get burnt out when 100% or close to of your workload is now complex interactions. So a AI enabled coaching first kind of QA approach that we're talking about here reduces the likelihood that your frontline is going to get burnt out, increases the likelihood that they know how to deal with complex interactions. It goes to skill development, the career development piece I talked about, and just their overall engagement. So I just wanted to highlight that. I know sometimes when we talk about AI, it feels like we're not talking about people, but I think this is a great example of AI is actually going to make your people better. And the stakes are higher for your people in a world where, again, their average workload, average contact is now at a higher complexity level. So hopefully that answers your question, Scott.
Yeah, it does absolutely. And you keyed in on a point that I don't think is underscored enough in talking to a customer about a year ago before I joined Amplify. She told her agents, hey, don't fear it. We're using it to make your world better. So she underscored the retention of her best agents because those mundane tasks are being handled by an AI agent. And now they get to have more of those complex sales, customer satisfaction interactions, whatever it may be, which is what makes your job more fun and are the things that drive you to get better. So you need to have something like this in place for you to coach your agents because it becomes so much more important to coach them when, like you said, they went from maybe 20% complex interactions to 70% or whatever the
Totally.
number is interactions. And they need to feel supported. Going back to your other point of that coaching, increasing your skill sets, all those things are going to make them better and happier in their job. There was a question in here that I'll address, though you typed the answer in there, Adrian. How do you do this when there's just a single intake form, which is something that we hear a lot of? Adrian, if you could just maybe address that, because that is something that comes up quite often.
You mentioned different LOBs, but how can you use a single universal form to auto QA all customer interactions regardless of the touch point? So what we would do here is depending on which program or LOB, if your team already has specific QA forms for that, we would align those QA forms with that program through additional data that's being passed through us, right? To make sure that, hey, when this interaction is taking place, this is the QA form to be used. Now, if your team is using a universal form, we would take that same approach, but at the question attribute level to say when this program only evaluate these specific attributes, because some attributes may not be applicable to that interaction type or to that program. So we would align this during the implementation process to ensure that when any of these forms are being auto QA'd, it will be against the correct program or line of business.
Perfect. Thank you. That brings us to the conclusion here. Thanks for spending time with us. We do have the CMP report here for download, but Nicole, you and your team have developed all sorts of great research, not just on this. So could you tell us where to go to find more of this research and understand how to improve their world a little bit better?
Absolutely. Thank you. You can go to cmpresearch.com. We have a number of white papers and insights available for download for free. We also do our own webinars about quarterly. You can register for an upcoming webinar on our site as well. So that's cmpresearch.com. And yes, the QR code to Scott's point is there where you can learn a little bit more about Amplify and the landscape of QA at the moment and what we've been observing across our practitioner base and across all the data we've assessed. So thanks so much.
Fantastic. Adrian, anything you'd like to close on?
No, but there is actually one question. I'll answer this. Someone asked, how is Amplify trained to identify negative sentiment? If it is able to do this, is it basing it off keywords used or the context of the conversation? Great question. So we're looking at a few different things here. We're looking at inflection, tone of the voice of the agent. We're looking at also any keywords that may have been used. We're looking at the context of the conversation. So a lot of different variables that are taking place. But yes, we are trained to identify negative customer sentiment or negative sentiment found on the interaction based off of different variables. So sentiment, voice, inflection, keywords, or just the context of the conversation. Because again, we are providing auto QA not only on voice interactions, but across multi-channels, so omni-channel, so that could be through SMS, through email. So we're able to pick that up differently.
Yep. And I think all of what you've been describing is why on that Prism report thumbnail there, Amplify on the far right for more progressive, because a lot of these advanced things, given the operations experience that we have on the team. So thank you again, everyone, for joining. If you have any other additional questions, feel free to reach out to Adrian directly. It's just avalenzuela@amplify.com. And excited to see everyone evolve to that next level and get up to speed with what the capabilities of improving your role and the metrics in your company can be today. So thank you everyone for joining, and thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Everyone.